Take a plexiglass ball bearing UFO hand spinner and a beaded red ruby auxiliary fidget, put them together, a little bit of magic, voila! It's one thing to buy a fidget. It's another to make one that will astound your friends. Interested? Here we go. This build is a outgrowth of the ball bearing plexiglass UFO build. What I found was when I used the same plexi for the bigger, these are 22 millimeters wide. They fit in there pretty good, pressure fit, but they were cracking. For comparison purposes, here's the 3/4 inch and here is the 22 millimeter red bead. You could actually use this design for these if you really wanted to. The challenge is this can get too wide. In fact, on my first design it was way too wide. Here it's a couple millimeters on either side. I think it's going to work out. 0.22 inch thickness. You'll need the printout. I'll put a link down below. Double-sided tape, some plexiglass, and it's an 18 by 24 inch piece. I did some measurements on it yesterday, and I think I could get about 70 fidgets out of that. That brings the cost down to about 30 cents worth of plexi that I get really close and tight on the cuts. What can you cut it out with? The jigsaw, or you can just use a regular coping saw. That works out well. You want to cut it as close to the lines as possible. Helps keep your sanding down. Started out with 100 grit and then went down to 180 and got a nice really smooth edge. Now we'll be finishing this off with a permanent marker to give this effect. So it's okay to have a little bit of roughness there. Too much material and you don't want to sand forever, you can use a file. This angle file here is good for the curves, and then just the straight file up and down. So I had to take some extra off to get it to this level. But the most important part is the dot in the middle, and that's where you line up your bit. Right here before you start drilling. I'll review a couple tips from last time on my previous build. Board, fidget, clamp here and here when you're drilling the center hole, and then here and here when you're drilling the holes, and then just rotate it. After you cut the hole out, you want to tape over the hole for a little extra strength and to protect it so it doesn't get scratched, and you have this magnificent finish at the end. This was kind of magnificent until the edge is cracked. Another point I would like to make that I didn't share last time is plexiglass can give off a funky smell when you're cutting it and when you're sanding it down. So wear a mask or even a bandana over your face, your nose and mouth to keep you safe. And also do this stuff outside unless you have some great setup where you've some sort of vacuum system sucking it all out into but going outside and doing this, you get to be out in the fresh air, and that, you know, then you just sweep it up and it's a lot easier than trying to do this in a workshop setting. It just gets out of control with the dust and the smell. Also, I'll provide a link to the beads below. These are the same beads I used in my Beglary build. All taped up and ready to drill with the 22 millimeter Forstner bit. The outcome of the hole drilling was success. I found 2 of the beads to go into the 22 millimeter holes, and I pressed fit them. And when I say press fit, I mean I'm forcing them in. You can see where maybe I was a little too aggressive and cracked it on this one. Now the last one it was a little too big, and so I had to kind of clean the hole out a little bit. I was going to use a Dremel tool, but I was a little apprehensive about that because the Dremel tool gets everywhere, the grinder on the Dremel tool. So I came up with this idea of just rolling up into a cylinder the 100 grit sandpaper, sliding it into the hole, and then moving it back and forth and swishing it this way. I've got the hole perfect, that's why I'm not moving it too much. And then after I did that, it was still a little rough on the inside. Took the 180 grit sandpaper, did the same thing, rolled it up. A couple little rounds on the inside there. Swish, 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 up and on. And voila, the bead fits in a pressure fit situation now. It's a little loose now that I've played with it a little more. I can either rotate it a little bit to help it, but like I said, wanted to put the holes in line with the plexi. Now it's time and put the marker on there. I guess you could use any color marker, blue, clear, white, and blue, green, but I'm going to go with red on red. I'm going to remove, clean it up. That will take a little cleaning up here, just from the sanding. And look at the wonderful base on the bottom. Touched up a little, couple pieces where this was a little rough on the edge. Now we got a little bit of goo here and there, and I'm going to use some lens cleaner for glasses and computers. Make sure all the and do the marking so I can hold it well. You might have to do this a couple times. What you don't want is to get it on the top or the bottom. You just want to hit the edge. There you go. Let that dry. Now on to the second coating. Check the bearing race. Looks good. As it turned out, I actually drilled the center hole a little off and wasn't really happy with it. So I went in and I sanded it with the technique I showed before, and I hit it with some super glue. I was able to center it, and now it's tracking. Beads are in place, and this build is complete. Thumbs up and comments, always appreciated. Future Fidget builds and other builds are on their way.